A prince must avoid making himself hated and despised. A prince should be both loved and feared, but it is better to be feared than loved if one cannot be both. A prince should have no other aim or thought but war and its organization and discipline. A prudent ruler cannot, and must not, honor his word when it places him at a disadvantage and when the reasons for which he made his promise no longer exist. A wise ruler ought never to keep faith when by doing so it would be against his interests. Before all else, be armed. Entrepreneurs are simply those who understand that there is little difference between obstacle and opportunity and are able to turn both to their advantage. Fortune is a river. To tame it, one must swim with it. He who is highly esteemed is not easily conspired against. He who neglects what is done for what ought to be done sooner effects his ruin than his preservation. He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command. If you want to make enemies, try to change something. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. It is better to be impetuous than cautious, for fortune is a woman and favors the bold. It is better to have a reputation for being wicked than for being weak. It is better to have a secure ally than a powerful one. It is double pleasure to deceive the deceiver. It is much more secure to be feared than to be loved. It is necessary for a prince to have the friendship of the people, otherwise he has no remedy in times of adversity. It is necessary for a prince to learn how not to be good and to use this knowledge or not to use it according to necessity. It is necessary to know how to disguise this characteristic and to be a great pretender and dissembler. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. It is not titles that make men illustrious, but men who make titles illustrious. Men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. Men are more apt to be mistaken in their generalizations than in their particular observations. Men are so simple and so much creatures of circumstance that the deceiver will always find someone ready to be deceived. Men in general judge more by their eyes than by their hands. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel. Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. Men shrink less from offending one who inspires love than one who inspires fear. Nature that framed us of four elements, warring within our breasts for regiment, doth teach us all to have aspiring minds. Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception. Never do an enemy a small injury. Never was anything great achieved without danger. One must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. One should never allow a disorder to persist in order to avoid war, for war is not avoided by it, but merely deferred to one's disadvantage. People should either be caressed or crushed. If you do them minor damage, they will get their revenge, but if you cripple them, there is nothing they can do. Politics have no relation to morals. Princes must avoid being despised and hated. The art of war is to bend fortune to your will. The choice of enemies is not open to us, it depends upon our adversaries. The devil can cite scripture for his purpose. The ends justify the means. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. The great majority of mankind are satisfied with appearances as though they were realities, and are often more influenced by the things that seem than by those that are. The greatest secret of war is to know when and how to take the offensive. The injury that is to be done to a man ought to be of such a kind that one does not stand in fear of revenge. The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. The more sand has escaped from the hourglass of our life, the clearer we should see through it. The one who adapts his policy to the times prospers, and likewise that the one whose policy clashes with the demands of the times does not. The only way to win is to learn faster than anyone else. The prince must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. The prince must be a lion, but he must also know how to play the fox. The prince who bases his power entirely on fortune is bound to fall. The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. The surest defense against evil is extreme individualism, originality of thinking, whimsicality, even, if you will, eccentricity. The surest way to be deceived is to consider oneself cleverer than others. The wise man does what he can, the fool does what he wants. There is no avoiding war, it can only be postponed to the advantage of others. There is no other way to guard yourself against flattery than by making men understand that telling you the truth will not offend you. There is nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in introducing a new order of things. War is just when it is necessary. Arms are permissible when there is no hope except in them. War should be the only study of a prince. When you disarm your subjects, you offend them by showing that either from cowardliness or lack of faith, you distrust them, and either conclusion will induce them to hate you.